Okay, there we go. Okay. Now, I have my new erase guidelines for facilitators, which has some new things on it to talk about. And I'm Nancy Moore. I have been coming to Erase since June. This is my, what is this, 22? This is, 15 years. This is my anniversary, June 2007. So I have been coming to Erase now for 15 years. And have thoroughly enjoyed it, right? Because otherwise I wouldn't be here. Eracism is the slogan of the group Erace, which was formed in New Orleans in the summer of 1993. We seek ways through person-to-person communication to show that we are committed to treating fellow human beings of all colors with love and respect. Join us. And then next we will have Louise do the reading of the land acknowledgement.
I want to acknowledge that what we know today as the US is the traditional territory of the indigenous peoples. Members of our group today are on the Tonkoan, Lipan Apache, and Comanche in Austin, the Chitimacha in New Orleans, the Creeks and Cherokees in Atlanta, the Lagniappe and Piscataway in Maryland, and the Wampanoag and Nipmuc peoples in Boston. Also the Cahula and the Mojave tribes in Riverside County, California. I want to thank their ancestors for being stewards of these lands through the generations and hope that we can continue this stewardship in the future.
Thank you, Louise. Okay, next we'll go around and have everyone give a brief introduction of themselves and how long you've been attending Erase. And I'll start with the order that I see you on my screen. Phyllis.
Good morning. I'm Phyllis and I'm in New Orleans and I've been coming to Erase since the summer of 2008.
Thank you. Nora.
Good morning, everybody. I'm in Austin and I've been coming, I don't know, maybe going on 8-9 months. Happy to be here.
Thank you. Marva.
Good morning. My name is Marva. I've been coming to Erase post-Katrina and then look forward to every Saturday that we meet. Hope
Thank you.
this is good discussion.
Yes. Louise.
Hi, I've been coming to Erase for on and off for over 2 decades and started in New Orleans and now I'm in Austin due to Katrina.
Thank you,
You got
Louise.
1 page.
What? Oh, that's Cindy. Didi.
Hi, I'm Dee Dee, and I've been coming to Erase for about 1.5 years, and I look forward to the Saturday mornings when I can get here, because it's neat to see everyone else's point of view and not just my own. So I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. Becky.
Good morning. I'm watching from Boston, Massachusetts, and I've been coming to Erase, I think a little bit in 2019, and since then on Zoom.
Thank you. Stanton.
Good morning. I think I just closed my video. Stanton, Austin, Texas, about 3 months now.
Thank you. Marlon.
Good morning. I'm Marla. I'm from the New Orleans area, and I've been coming for a couple years, I think. I kind of lost track of time. So I'm looking forward to today's discussion.
Thank you. Erin.
Hi, everyone. I'm Erin. I'm in Austin. I've been coming for a couple of months, and I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. Pedro.
Yeah. Hey, good morning. I'm Pedro from Austin, Texas. Been coming about 2 years. I'm recovering from trying to recover from this COVID deal. So may bow out a little bit early today, but sorry that I missed the last meeting and great to be back.
Thank you. Cindy.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Cindy Morse in New Orleans. I guess we've been coming 4 or 5 years. I don't know exactly. One of these days I'll track it down. Good to see you all today.
Thank you. Larry.
Good morning, I'm Larry. I started coming to Erace back in the mid-90s. And I've kind of always amazed me of the lack of Black male voices in these meetings, but I'm happy to be here this morning.
Thank you, Larry. Bill.
I don't see my video. I'm not sure what's happening with it, but
Look down at the bottom or on the side for a camera.
yeah, if I hit the mute, if I take the mute stop video, my name comes up, but if I play the video, it's just a black screen. I'm not sure what's happening, but anyway, I've been coming to Erace for as long as Cindy has. We always come together, 4 or 5 years. I apologize for my video, but I'm still very present.
Okay, well, we can see your name, so we know you're there. Okay, thank you. Greer.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Greer. I've been attending Erace since around 2007. I think I came around the time you started, Nancy.
Oh, okay.
All right, good morning, everyone.
Well, good morning, thank you. Okay. A little housekeeping here. Since we're now in a Zoom format, there's a couple more things. If you look at the bottom of your screen, there's a microphone that is a mute icon where you can turn yourself on and off. Please keep yourself muted unless you're speaking. We also have a camera which will start and stop your video. There is a participant icon when you can see how many people are participating. You can also change your screen name there. There is a little bubble for the chat button where you can post information that you would like to share with the group. The format of the meeting is that you raise one finger to get on the list. We go in the order of the list. Please keep your comments to roughly about 2 minutes. Be respectful, don't interrupt the speaker, no side comments, no personal text, no name calling. The point of the discussion is to listen, learn, and not to argue with one another. If you'd like to ask a clarifying question, you raise 2 fingers to ask a clarifying question of the speaker. There are no more than 2 people that can ask a question to the speaker. A clarifying question is, can you explain what you meant by, okay, or further explain, or I didn't understand what you meant. It's not to make a statement or to challenge the speaker about what they said, okay? We have, we will have a wrap up 15 minutes before, and it might be a little bit longer because we do have 16 people on the screen. So it may be 20 minutes before the end of the meeting. Everyone will have an opportunity to give their final thoughts, okay? And you'll be given a minute for that, but if you haven't spoken, you can take the full 2 minutes, and it's also okay to pass. Okay. All right, so we can, oh, another thing, very important thing, is that these meetings are being recorded and will be uploaded to YouTube. So remember that your comments and your image will be on the internet probably in perpetuity. All right. So you always want to put forward your best face. Okay. Glenn, you didn't get a chance to introduce yourself during the introductions. Would you like to do that now?
Name is Glenn Abdullah. I've been coming to Erace since 1994. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Now, the reason that I brought the topic, I was talking a little earlier before the meeting, and I was saying that when you have Edge as your default browser, it defaults to MSN as your homepage, and articles come up. And this article came up, which I thought was very interesting. I do follow basketball. As a matter of fact, this is like the most wonderful time of the year. It's coming to an end, unfortunately, which I will go into withdrawal. But yes, the playoffs is just amazing to me. I look forward to it every year. And so yes, I do follow. I've been following the teams and the interview that was given. And what did he say? This white boy is a problem. Is getting to the point where I don't think he's white anymore, And the author of the article was offended by that, because why do you think that? Why are white players always thought to have inferior athletic skills? But it extends further than that. All right. I thought about a conversation that I heard two women having, talking about another girl, and they said, girl, she was drunk. And the other one said, white girl drunk? They said, worse than that, white girl. She was more than white girl drunk. Okay. And so there are certain things that are comments that are made about white people that, if it was said about another ethnic group, it would be deemed as being racist. But when it's said about white people, it's not. And maybe it goes back to the fact that you can't be racist against white people, or the thought is that you can't be racist about white people. But I just thought it would make for very interesting discussion, and I'm really interested to hear people's thoughts and opinions about it. So with that, the list is open. Anybody want to put their finger up? I know everybody Phyllis, I know everybody has an opinion. This is, as Dr. Phil says, this is a safe place to talk about hard things. That is the point of this group. Okay, Phyllis.
Well, I've never heard the term white girl drunk before, but I know exactly what it means and what it looks like. Not that I've ever been it, but I've seen it. And I don't get offended by jokes like that, or like the website that things white people love. That just makes me howl. I disagree with this author. The Examiner is a conservative paper, and I think it's different in my mind to make fun of a group of people who put themselves up as the epitome of all humankind. I don't think it's racism. I think it's poking fun, and I don't think it causes anybody to feel like they're inferior because they're white. I don't think that is the cause of any of these jokes. And I will add, if you don't know, white girl drunk always involves crying. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Phyllis. Greer. Marla.
Let's see. I think until we all are respected, it's like with people go Black Lives Matter, then they'll go, well, all lives matter too. But if Black lives don't matter, all lives don't matter. Until we start to respect each other on all levels, then this will continue. And when you are supposedly in, let's say in this country, you are the standard of what's called righteousness and what's right. So when you take a blow, that's because of the blow that you put on everybody else that you're oppressed.
Louise.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Greer. Marla?
Yeah, some of my thoughts were similar to Greer's. The first thing I thought when I read this, actually, I almost thought it was satire. Like it seemed like something out of Neutral Ground News or something like that. For those of you who aren't in the New Orleans area, Neutral Ground News consistently satires issues in the New Orleans area. But I really thought, wow, this person is sincerely like butthurt about this, right? I mean, they really were upset about this, at least in my eyes. My first thought was, you cannot, as a white person, get wrapped up and upset about this when we are the ones who set the standard for jokes, things that were putting folks of different races at the brunt of a joke. And, kind of like you should take what you have kind of created, like you created it. So why wouldn't you expect to get it right back at you? And I don't know, I think we just need to sit down and let it roll. I found a lot of it pretty entertaining. I concur with Phyllis. That's all.
Thank you, Marla. Glenn?
Well, I was watching a track runner for Kentucky named Abby Steiner, and she is fast. That's normally not an area where a white person occupies in track for the short distances. That's normally been for many decades since Jesse Owens. That's something that the black person owns that. But this girl is faster than any black girl. Now, and now I was by myself watching, and I said, "Wow, she must have some black in her." And it just, I mean, we don't think about it. I mean, when we make these comparisons. Now we used to, they had a movie out that said white men can't jump, and that became a joke, and so
Yeah.
but there are those stereotypes that they, when it comes to sports, we have those stereotypes. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Louise? Oh, Becky has a clarifying question of Glenn. No, you just want one finger. Okay, great. Okay. We have Louise, Bill, Becky. Anyone else? Cindy? Louise?
Rebecca just did one finger twice. Anywho, I feel like that just borderlines on stereotypes, and yeah, I'm not offended by those things either. It doesn't hurt my feelings at all. But I do remember, in fact, in a race meeting very long time ago, we discussed stereotypes and how I feel a race is part of that. We get different perspectives and we really try to break down those stereotypes, and I dislike them in any way, shape, or form. In fact, when we did that first discussion, I remember someone was saying, oh yeah, white women don't wash their hands after they go to the toilet. And I was kind of offended by that. It's like, what? Where did they get that from? Where did that come from? And I have to admit, to this day, if I'm in a public restroom, I'm like, washing my hands. Here I am. It's ridiculous. I hate stereotypes. And so I think that's all I've got to say at the moment. And I think those jokes and those things are, they're not particularly funny to me. It's just, they don't hurt me, but they don't amuse me, and that's it.
Okay, thank you. Greer, you have your hand up again? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So then I have, and Glenn. Okay, so then I have Bill, Becky, Cindy, Greer, and Glenn. Anyone else? Phyllis. Okay, so Bill.
Yeah, it's a it's an interesting question. I used to listen to, when I was working in Jacksonville, Florida, there was a black radio station. Tom Joyner was the DJ, a black DJ, and he had a group of people with him, and they would make a lot of jokes. And one of the things they would do is they would say something ridiculous that white people do. And they'd say, why do white people do that? And then they'd say, I don't know, let's ask the white man. So there was a character called D White Man. And he said, hey, D, why do white men do that? People do that. I don't remember any of the instances, but I thought it was funny at the time. But I see the author of this article has a point, and maybe white people don't get offended because they're in the vaulted role in terms of racism. And so maybe they don't get offended by that. And they find it funny because they're not in a situation where they're always being criticized for their race. I don't know. I don't have the answer to that question, but that could be the thing. But I think I agree with the article. But I think we should respect everyone and not tell jokes based on people's ethnicity or race. But I sure find D White Man funny. And so anyway.
Thank you, Bill. Okay, next we have Becky.
So thank you. So I think that the white people are not offended because they can view it as just sort of light teasing, because they're secure in their environment. And but a black person is not that secure. There's a lot of trouble. So when they're teased, unless it's a very secure situation, it's threatening. I'd love to see the movie White Men Can't Jump, because I wonder, because if you have a friendly teasing relationship between a black and a white person, that's a very nice thing. But it would be very hard to create that because the white person is secure in their environment and the black person is not. So I can see that. And if it can happen, it would be wonderful. So maybe it does happen in White Men Can't Jump. I don't know. Maybe somebody else has seen that.
Okay, thank you, Becky. If anyone, Stanton, if anyone has, I've seen the movie, but if anyone has seen the movie, would they like to kind of let Becky know what it's about? You can talk about it. Stanton, you had your finger up, correct? Okay. All right, so next we have Greer.
Well, who wanted to know about White Men Can't Jump? Becky?
Becky.
About the movie? Okay, basically it's about Woody Harrelson and Wesley Snipes. They basically are basketball players that play in parks, and it's about Woody Harrelson trying to get away from people that he owed money because he didn't he didn't throw a game like he should have when he was in college. So they've been chasing him down. He teams up with Wesley Snipes, who's like a hustler. They start trying to go to different tournaments to win money so Woody Harrelson can pay off the debt and they can win money, because Wesley Snipes wants to move outside of the bad neighborhood that he lives in. But one of the scenes in the movie where you get the theme of white men can't jump, Woody Harrelson wins like $2,500 of a $5,000 prize that he split with Wesley Snipes. And he was trying to slam a ball in a basketball goal. And Wesley Snipes was teasing him like, look, man, you know you can't do it. He said, yes, I can do it. And Wesley was like, let me pump up your Reebok so you can get a little high and jump. So he kept trying, and basically lost the bet. So that's where the theme of the movie comes from, that little scene right there. And it's actually a funny movie. I loved it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get back on. Oh God, my mind is gone today. I'm gonna get back on
We
here.
are. Okay.
Because I used that time. Bye.
Okay, Cindy.
A long time ago, one of my sons, blonde, blue-eyed kid, but very tall and very athletic, was in a summer camp that was 95% Nord kids. That was mostly Black, and he was teased. The irony was he was one of the tallest kids in the group, and he could jump, but the other kids didn't think it was legit. So he came home saying, why are they teasing me? He had no history to understand what was going on. He might have been about 8 or 9. And it's a hard thing to explain to a kid. They're teasing you because you really can't jump. But I can jump. So you're right. Yeah, but he didn't get it. And that stuck with him for years. Why they tease me. He was always in mixed schools, usually Blacker than white, or more Black than white. But he learned to jump.
Yeah.
It left a mark on him. He was, most of his friends were Black, but whatever.
Okay. Thank you, Cindy. Next we have, okay, this is the list. We have Glenn, Phyllis, Marla, Stanton, Greer, and Bill. Anybody else? And Larry. Okay, Glenn.
Well, that was a movie, but white men can jump. But the movie affected my mind. I believe after watching, after that thing became repeated into the culture, I started believing that. But I just thought just a minute ago, some of the best high jumpers in Olympic history have been white men. Larry Bird could dunk a ball, and all these other Pistol Pete and all of them could dunk balls, so white men can jump. That was just a movie that caught on and it became explosive in the culture, but it's untrue. Now, with what someone said about we not being secure, that's true. We can make statements like this: that white boy is good. That white boy is that. Now, this is a man we talking about. We call him a boy. Now, if white people could say, LeBron James, that boy is good. Muhammad Ali, that's a good boy. We would, in our insecurity, we'd be very offended by that. That's it.
Thank you, Glenn. Phyllis.
Well, I hate to break it to Louise, but the stereotype is worse than we don't wash our hands. We don't wash our legs in the shower. That is the new stereotype. And I literally saw a posting where a Black woman put, almost every time I'm in the shower, it just comes into my mind. They really don't wash their legs. and other people were commenting, and I was again howling because it's a stereotype. The people who post it know it's a stereotype, but it just is like, it's almost to me a rebalancing of the power dynamic. And again, it doesn't offend me, although I will tell people I do wash my legs and my hands. I work at a hospital. I wash my hands really well. Thank you.
Thank you, Phyllis. Marla.
Yeah, I was thinking of that same post, Phyllis, about white folks not washing their legs. And actually, some white women were big mad in the comments, like not just jokingly saying, hey, not me. Like there were a few who were sincerely mad. And I thought about that more, well, the author of the article talks about why don't white people get mad or have like outcry when they're made fun of. Some do. And, when they do, obviously, I think they feel a threat to their power and their position of power. But yeah, the, the post about the white legs not being washed. And there was something else I was thinking about. Oh, a Black woman backed another white woman up who said that she did clean herself very thoroughly. And she said, I can vouch for her. She doesn't play when it comes to cleaning herself. So anyway, it was just, yeah, I was howling too. Someone else was talking about if there could be a friendly relationship between Black folks and white folks that was reciprocated in that way and in the joking. And I'll say, like, my daughter, many of her friends of color, they are able to joke a lot, but like my daughter will never put it back the way that she takes it. And she likes to take it. She gets kind of a kick out of it. She and I were talking about this article this morning. And one of the things that's come up, when she was in school, her friends who are Black will say, like, Keelan will say she likes canes, and the other friend will say, oh no, it's so bland. And she's like, oh, but I know you do like it because you're white, so you like it. Anyway, and a lot of those things come up just in jest with them. But like I said, she wouldn't give that same type of relationship back. I don't think she feels comfortable in that for good reason. That's it anyway.
Thank you, Marla. Next we have Stanton.
I had a daughter of a friend of mine come to visit us in Austin for the comedy festival, and she was in her early 20s. And when she came back to the house, we were talking about what she learned, and she said, well, they were teaching her in a workshop that in comedy you can punch up, but you can't punch down. And I thought, oh, I'd never heard that. Now I've heard that several times, but the concept is that, white men can be the brunt of jokes these days because white men have been in positions of power and authority for centuries. So it's okay for women to make fun of men. It's okay for Blacks to make fun of whites. It's okay to punch up, but you can't punch down. And I'm fine with that concept. I don't disagree. I think the pendulum's swinging. But sort of the bigger question in all this for me is, well, if this had been the reverse and had a white announcer or another white sports player said something that was stereotypic of somebody of a different race, would they have gotten into trouble? Would they have lost their job? Would they have been censured? So the consequences now are they on an equitable and fair basis, or do white men generally have to be much more cautious and careful about what they say because the consequences of them saying something could be more detrimental to their careers? And so, again, it's just a question of the pendulum, and hopefully we'll get back to some equilibrium at some point. May take another several centuries, but probably I hope we'll get there.
Okay, thank you, Stanton. Next we have Greer, then Bill, then Larry. Does anyone else want to get on the list? Didi. Okay, great. Greer.
I think we forget that at one point in time, Black and white people weren't allowed to play sports together. Everything was segregated. So even in the separation, there still were, like, you had Black football teams, white football teams, Black basketball teams, white basketball teams. And with it, I just focus on the basketball. Even with college, it's like the styles were so different. And I think that's where this term comes from, white men can't jump, because basically they tried to outlaw dunking once colleges took and merged where Black players could play, because the styles were so different, because they didn't play each other. They weren't able to keep up with the Black player. And the average white player definitely didn't dunk back in the 60s, if you think about it. And what my uncle was saying, which was, I really thought about it, yeah, because the Fosbury flop for high jumping, I mean, for you to throw your body in the air that high, your whole body, not just trying to put a ball in the hoop, that's amazing. So you have to have, as they say, hops to do that. But I think really this is basically the chickens coming home to roost. You've put this out there about other people, and it's coming back to you. And it's not just Black people with fragility. White people have fragility too. And if you look at what's going on in the world today, especially with abortions, critical race theory is and other things, there's a lot of white fragility. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Greer. We have Bill, Larry, D. Anyone else? Okay, Bill.
Picking up on what Greer said, when I was a kid and played basketball, for the first years of my life, I went to segregated schools. And I played basketball and football, and just with white kids. And then I moved to Syracuse, New York, and there was a bunch of kids, Black kids, playing on the playground. And I went and played basketball with them.
Clear.
And they were very friendly and accepting to me. And so that was a different thing, but I can't jump. I'm 6'4" and I can't dunk the ball. But as Glenn said, some white people can jump. Larry Bird was incredible. It was interesting that his big rival was Magic Johnson, both in college and in pro sports. Just a little more on the movie. The reason why they were so effective at the con, they would do pickup games on the playgrounds for big money. And the reason why they were so effective is white men can't jump. And Woody Harrelson was a good basketball player. He had a great outside shot in the movie. And, but he could pretend like he wasn't very good. And they would do the con that way. And he could get away with the con because of the reputation of white people not being very good at basketball. So it was a funny movie, but I tend to agree with the author and should not do these things going forward.
Thank you, Bill. Larry?
You know, if a movie were to be made with the title Black Man Can't Ski, I wouldn't be offended over it. I think if it was done in good taste, and same with White Man Can't Jump. You know, it was funny, it was done in good taste, but, you know, Greer used the term chickens come home to roost. I wouldn't quite go that far, but I understand where she was coming from because, you know, back in the days, there was the Amos and Andis. I think that was their names, where Black people were just ridiculed. There were the minstrels and the Black faces, you know, where Black people were just made fun of. And there was the Black man who was looking down at the ground, scratching his head because he dare look a white woman or white man in the eyes. So, you know, it's not exactly a chicken coming home to roost. But at the same token, the kind of jokes that Black people were subjected to, you know, white man can't jump is not a ridicule, but the type of jokes that Black people were subjected to, those jokes were really ridicule. And you throw the word nigger in there, and that just made them worse, you know. So we're living in an age now where as long as there are comedians and movies, you're going to have people. You know, I think what we're trying to do in society is not offend nobody no time. And that just ain't going to happen. You know, we want to call for a person's job if he used the term nigger, and no matter what context he used it in. Some things we have to use as a teaching moment, education moment. We can't just fire everybody who offend us. And we can't take offense to everything that somebody might say about us. So, you know, we just have to grow. We just have to grow and mature. Some things we have to live with. It's not the worst thing in the world to be made of, you know. People have made fat jokes, you know, all their lives. People made jokes, you know, about the color of people's skins. You know, we were coming up in high school, we might call a person yellow if they were, you know, a very light-skinned Black person, you know. So anyway, that's all for now.
Thank you. Pedro, did you have your finger up? Okay. All right, Dee Dee, Greer, Pedro. Anyone else? Okay, Phyllis. All right, Dee Dee.
I read this article and two things came to mind. The stereotypical, and somebody brought up the point about segregated sports, because my grandfather played on the Black football team in Chicago. And that's how it was back then. And then things changed. But we can't get lazy because things need to keep changing in other sports. And what comes to mind is the foo-ha that was made during the Rio Olympics when Simone Manuel took 4 medals. And that was a first. They had a Black woman in the swimming pool. And a lot of folks know that, especially up until relatively recently, Black kids and white kids couldn't swim in the same pool. And so there was a lot said about that. There was said that Black women weren't built correctly to do ballet. And it was, my mother decided to put my sister in ballet class. And the teacher took my mother aside and said, "Don't waste your money, your daughter has no talent." And so my mom really knew what she was saying and took my sister out of the class anyway. But these kind of stereotypes are around. I don't accept them. I do get offended. It becomes a case of pick your battles. And sometimes folks will say things that are just over the line, and I do get offended. I can let a lot of stuff go, but sometimes I don't let it go. And I'm okay with being that way. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dee Dee. Greer.
Now, in the article, this the person who wrote it referenced White Men Can't Jump. But there was also a movie called Soul Man, where C. Thomas Howell took medication to darken his skin so he can get a scholarship to Harvard because he didn't get in as white. And the ramifications of that, was I offended at that movie? No, I wasn't, because it showed what he learned in terms of what white people say about Black people, because he had never been on that side of the coin. And it also went into that he realized who he took that scholarship from was a person. It was all about him going to Harvard. So I thought the movie was funny and there was some learning points about it. But let's think about who produces these movies. Let's think about who produces most of the music that's out there, that actually distributes it to the world. It's not people of color. The main drivers of this are white people. So white people are actually doing this to white people. I mean, if you think about it, let's look at the music industry. Black artists who have music distributed, who are rappers, who are, I guess gangster rappers, you can call them. They can sing about drug dealing, killing Black people, saying the N-word. But those same companies wouldn't let white artists sing about child abuse, killing animals, beating women. So you have to sort of look at the source and what's allowed and what's not allowed. If you're gonna pick on White Men Can't Jump, there was nobody Black producing this. They had Black people in the movie, but those people didn't have control at all. That's it.
Thank you, Greer. Next we have Pedro. Pedro.
Yeah, I hope I didn't take my 2 minutes trying to find my mute button.
Okay.
Anyhow, yeah, interesting article. I really liked what Stanton said earlier. Punching up is okay, but punching down is not. And that's really the nature of oppression, is that certain groups of people have to endure negative influences at a greater rate their whole life. That's the term what weathering comes from, by Dr. Geronimus, Arlene Geronimus, that it takes a toll. It takes a toll in years of life and those types of things and such. So I think that's one thing. I think the article kind of turns me off. It's kind of like, kind of trying to equate these different forms of demeaning remarks, or if you want to call them that. But the outcome is different when you have a vast majority of folks that like for instance, for me, I grew up all around sports. I didn't get into politics till I was much later in life, and we would go to a Black part of town, which some of our friends were from, to play basketball in the street basketball. And one thing you learn very quickly is you don't call fouls in street basketball. If someone hacks you or whatever, you don't call a foul, because that's, you just don't do it. But you go back down at the other end and you hack them, that type of thing. It's just the idea that white men can't jump comes from the fact that they can't. If you take white people at a certain height and compare them to 1,000 people of the African-American community of the same height, I will guarantee you that you will see a difference. Now, there are some white men that can jump, and Larry Bird really wasn't one of them. What Larry Bird was an outside shooter. No one shot the ball like Larry Bird, and it probably came because he couldn't jump. He was like 6'9", 6'10", so of course he can dunk, but he really couldn't jump. And that's kind of getting off the point. I think the main point is that oppression sucks. And anything that diverts our attention from unfair opportunities based on race, kind of like what this article is about, takes us away from what really fundamentally needs to change. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Pedro. Next we have Phyllis. Anyone else want to get on the list? Because it's open after that. Nora, okay.
So
Phyllis?
I was going to say, to go back to the article, I don't know if I said this earlier, but the Washington Examiner is a conservative paper, and I can't help but thinking that this article has a conservative agenda behind it to kind of stir the pot, get white people worked up about having jokes made about them. I'm not sure that I didn't feel like this author made his point. He didn't deliver it to me. He didn't convince me. I just think we need to have a sense of humor, white people. And I knew those terms about punching up and punching down in comedy. So I didn't think about that in this article, but I appreciate that perspective too, that it is a lot different for a white person to make a joke about an oppressed group than for a member of an oppressed group to make a joke about white people. And you know, the recent stand-up, I can't think of his name, but where the Black comedian, I'm just having a morning where I can't remember anything.
Dave Chappelle?
Chappelle, where he got a lot of flack, and I think rightly so, for his punching down at trans people. And I think he's smart enough that he could have done a show that didn't do that. And yeah, it was disturbing to watch. And you don't often see, I think, Black comedians punching down like that. They have so much to punch up at. There's all of us white people. So, and especially when there's so many trans people of color being harmed, that it was disappointing. So, you know, I just encourage white people to have a sense of humor and don't fall for conservative agenda claptrap like this. Thank you.
Thank you, Phyllis. Nora?
Yeah, so when I was teaching middle school in East Texas and living there, I just witnessed so much blatant racism from white people that was new to me. And it was just kind of astounding and upsetting. And one day, one of my Black students called me massa. And I was stunned and didn't respond, and just felt like, yeah, I can understand why he called me that. And it just kind of brought me to my knees. And I felt like I couldn't say anything. There's just so much to acknowledge about the area and about racism and systemic racism that I couldn't express to a middle school student. And I just, that's it, just stunned.
Okay, thank you, Nora. The list is open. It's 10, Larry. Before I get to you, Larry, Rebecca has to leave at noon, okay, which is 2 minutes away in her time. So I just wanted to say, Rebecca, do you have any final thoughts that you'd like to give before you leave?
Yeah. Yeah. Wait, sorry.
There you go.
Okay. Yes, I just want to thank everybody. Yes, I think that you really have to be in a secure relationship to engage in teasing. And I would say that for the LGBTQ group of people, they're just not in a secure, they wouldn't know when they were in a secure position. And that would be really terrible. But anyway, I learned from this. I would hate to say that we can't tease each other anymore, but I think we have to be careful about when we do it. And
Okay.
to not be offensive or punching down. That was a good description of that. So thanks very much. Sorry that I have to leave, and thank you, Nancy, for letting me speak.
Okay, you have a nice weekend, all
Okay,
right?
thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Larry?
There was a movie made by Richard Pryor and Gene Wilder some years ago called Stir Crazy. And that was a prison scene where both of them went to prison, and Richard Pryor had to show Gene Wilder how to act like a prisoner while he was in jail. Had to teach him how to be tough and how to walk tough. You know, in a way, one might say, well, that movie was ridiculing Gene Wilder. You know, no, not at all. It was funny. And if you've ever heard Richard Pryor's albums, you know, I mean, Richard Pryor was an expert at taking everyday situations and turning them into laughter, whether it was white or black. And, you know, that's what professional comedians do. And if you go to a comedy show, you best expect to be offended, you know, in some way, shape, form, or fashion, not necessarily, but it may come up. When I was a little boy coming up, people used to always tell jokes sometimes. They might tell you a joke about the white man and the Indian man, or the Jew man and the black man. They will put up a scenario and tell you the white man acted this way, the Indian acted this way. But when it got to the colored man or the Negro, he was always the one that reacted stupidly. And so this thing has been a part of our society, and laughter is good therapy. And when we're able to laugh at ourselves sometimes, is even a greater therapy, especially when we're going through some things. Some people say, I had to laugh to keep from crying. So, but we just have to learn when we tell jokes, not to let them be in bad taste, to really offend people. And when we learn something to offend people, then we shouldn't do it. But otherwise, you know, we just have to thicken our skins and learn to laugh. It's good therapy for you. Thanks.
It is. Thank you, Larry. Stanton? And I think we'll we have 20 people. We have a lot of people. But go ahead, Stanton.
Yeah, I just wanted to say in regards to what the Dave Chappelle comedy routine was talking about, he said something in that has left a really profound impact on my thinking, which was, he stated, to what degree am I required to participate in your perception of reality? And that's a really deep, deep concept, that we all have our own perceptions, we all have our own feelings, we all have our own viewpoints. But now, to what degree do I require the person next to me to share that, or to, you know, acknowledge it? Acknowledge it, but maybe don't have to agree with it, don't have to share it. And I just also wanted to tell Larry, I really appreciate something that you said a couple of weeks ago about, can Black people be racist? This is just an aside. You got me really thinking, and you got me thinking hard for the last couple of weeks. And I think I've come around to understand what it was you were saying. And I appreciate you saying what you said, because it helped me open up my mind to another way of thinking. So thank you, Larry.
Yeah. And that is the total point of a race to me. I mean, I know I'm a facilitator, but I just always felt like that at some point, at some time, with a particular topic and a particular speaker, you're going to go, I never really thought about it that way. And that's the whole point. This is why we come, is to learn from one another. Okay.
Nancy, can I quickly interrupt you for 1 second? I also do have kind of a clarifying question about the whole concept of what I guess the mission statement of Erace is. You did say it was to respect people of color. So, and I don't mean to start a whole new conversation, but for next time. So does that then extend itself to gender and to sexual orientation and to any other type of oppressed or minority group? Is it just based on color, or is it also more expansive to include the other things like gender, religion, orientation?
Yeah, you know, the group of race was formed in '93, and it was based on race because of articles in the Times-Picayune, Together Apart, or Apart Together. I wasn't here when when the article came out, but that's what it was based on. It was based on race. Now, an ongoing debate, and if you'd like to attend our board meetings where we formulate policy, they're at 9 o'clock at the beginning of the first meeting of the month. And give your input on maybe we should change our mission statement, because that has been an ongoing debate with everyone about including exactly what you said. We'd like to be more expansive going forward and not just be about racial issues. We do talk about LGBT issues from time to time. Maybe not in the time that you've been coming, but we do it occasionally. We do have, as a matter of fact, I saw an article this morning while I was looking at my article for today about a graduation speech given in Ohio, which was interesting, towards negatively towards the LGBT community, which I think would be timely if I did it next week. I don't know. But anyway, yes, we do those occasionally. It's just whatever the facilitator, and maybe you would like to be a facilitator and work in that direction. That's certainly open. We're not a closed group about that. So we can talk about that later, probably after we get off of the recording a little bit. So anyway, what I was going to say is that we were going to move forward to the wrap up. Okay. And the people that I have that haven't spoken are Marva, Aaron, and Leonetta. I think everyone else has had an opportunity. Everyone else has had an opportunity to speak at least once. And so you can take the full 2 minutes to give your wrap up, and you can also pass if you're not comfortable. So Marva.
I pass. Thank you,
Pass.
Nancy.
Okay.
I have been trouble speaking this morning.
Okay. All right. That's fine. Aaron.
Well, I appreciate hearing everybody's opinions on this article. I think I agree with a lot of people who aren't really, I'm not personally offended by this, but at the same time, I like, just strategically, is it okay to, is there going to be some point where it isn't okay to make fun of white people, basically, because just logically, the rules of equity make it not okay. I don't know. The whole punching up versus punching down makes perfect sense to me, and I think that's where we're at. But I'm curious to see where future will take us with this. Thank you for sharing all your opinions.
Thank you, Aaron. Leonetta.
Good morning, everybody. I'm sorry. I don't have anything to contribute to the conversation. I've just been listening.
All right, that's fine. All right. So now we'll move on to everyone else has a minute for their final thoughts. Phyllis.
Sorry, I'm trying to type something at the same time. and I cannot multitask. Let me go back to that. So I just wanted to take my 1 minute to say, I want to highly recommend an HBO Max stand-up special. It's Jared Carmichael, Jerrod, is the person's name, and the show is called Rothaniel, Rothaniel. It's very personal comedy. I would say there's no punching up and punching down. There's just talking about family and self, and it's very moving if anybody wants to watch it. Thanks for the article. Thanks for the conversation, everybody.
Thank you, Phyllis. Nora?
Yeah, I was very suspect of the article and just really put off by the title of it. Like when is it socially acceptable? And when was it? And I just thought it was too much like, oh, you know, Black people can say things, but white people can't. There's too much focus on what's fair. And it really turned me off. I just didn't like it. That's all.
Okay, thank you, Nora. Dee Dee?
There we go. I enjoyed hearing the different opinions. When I was starting to read the article just from the title, I thought it was going to be something a little bit different than what it was. But part of what stays in the back of my mind is, white folks have been talking about Black folks and every other ethnicity forever. And so now it's our turn. And then my common sense kicked in and said, 2 wrongs don't make a right. And so, like a couple of people have said in this meeting, we just need to let all of this stuff go and just not do it and then move on.
Okay, thank you. Pedro?
Yeah, great discussion today. A couple of things real quick. I think when I think about racism, I think about the hierarchy of manifestations of racism that need to be addressed, right? So there's some that are more egregious than others. So certainly the article points to maybe a form of racism and such, but I go back to it's kind of lower on the totem pole for sure. I think of white privilege versus Black privilege. And if we really look at those two things, we can kind of see the same thing. Lastly, I think racism is focused on race. And a friend of mine, Dr. Darity at Duke University, done a bunch of really good stuff on reparations, right? Black reparations. And people would ask him, well, what about Japanese American reparations? Or and he said, you know what? They need to pursue that interest themselves as well. But his focus was on Black reparations. And I think the same thing with the LGBT thing. There's different layers of discrimination. They're all hurtful, unconscionable. And I would just think that this is a safe place to talk about all that stuff, but I don't know about changing the mission is necessary, but I would be interested in that conversation. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you, Pedro. Please join us at 9 o'clock on the first meeting of the month. Okay, I'm interested in everyone's opinion on that issue. Stanton.
I'm just going to say thank you and have a good weekend to everybody.
Okay, thank you. Larry.
Long time ago, there was a group called the Righteous Brothers, two white guys. And for the longest, my peers, we thought those guys had to be Black till we saw them on the Ed Sullivan show. And it kind of blew our minds. Now, why do we think they had to be Black? because at the time we thought that white men could sing like that, so they had to be black. But you know, it wasn't no way of ridiculing white people. I mean, you had the Frank Sinatras, the Tony Bennett's, and all the rest of them around at that time. So it wasn't a question of white people, you know, not being able to sing. But you know, it was laughter like music is, you know, the great uniter if we let it be. And thank you, Stanton, for your comments. Appreciate that. And you know, let's just march on and keep on what we're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Louise.
Yeah, I guess I just want to reiterate what I said before, that I just don't appreciate stereotypes really, and comedians that, you know, black or white, do things like black people do this, white people do this. Well, I just find it not funny, you know. I mean, I think I've got a good sense of humor, but that stuff doesn't really do it for me. So yeah, just stereotypes, man. Get rid of them. They're just silly. And thank you, everybody. Have a great weekend, I hope.
Thank you, Louise. Cindy.
It's kind of the same old, same old. I grew up with the thing of, oh, redheads, watch out, you better have a hot temper. And I don't. So stereotypes, again, out the window. They're developed so people, it's kind of like a crutch. Why not treat people like you want to be treated? The same old rule makes good sense. And you don't tease people unless you're particularly good friends. Like my brothers and I, a couple of them, we tease each other, but we grew up teasing, but it's never hurtful. If it crosses that line, somebody will say, whoa, wait, don't do that. Anyway, thanks. It was an interesting discussion.
Thank you, Cindy. Marla.
I've got nothing to add. As always, just always fascinated by the different opinions and
perspectives,
sharing of beliefs of everybody here. So thank you. Have a great week.
Okay, you too. Bill.
Yeah, there was a, picking up what Larry said, the Buddy Holly story, the movie, he's booked into the Apollo Theater because listening to his records, the promoter thought he was black. And he opens the curtain goes back and the all black audience at the Apollo Theater looks at him, and everybody just kind of laughs. And then he starts singing a really good song and the audience really gets into it. But this article, I appreciate it, Nancy, because like most of the articles that we read, it causes me to think and to reflect on what I do and try to make sure that what I do is not racist. So I could go either way on this, but I don't think it's a good idea to make fun of people because of their ethnicity or race. So I kind of side with the author, although I was looking up the author because Phyllis mentioned the Washington Examiner. This guy has a lot of other articles that are pretty socially conservative. So it doesn't mean this article is, but because I think it raises legitimate issues. Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you, Bill. Greer.
I listened to what everybody had to say, and I'm going to say this. When we all have equity, this will stop. Black people in this country are still fighting their first fight. When we have full equity and equality, then everything else will fall in place for everyone else. Because honestly, we are the lowest people on the totem pole in this country. So when everything is fixed for us, you won't have these problems. But see, that's the issue. Is this country or the people in this country willing to do that? Because we've been trying to do. So obviously it's going to take more than us. I watched Jared Carmichael's comedy show. I enjoyed it. It was his personal experience. And I watched Dave Chappelle. It was his personal experience and also a commentary on society. I enjoyed them both. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. Glenn. Glenn. Okay, Glenn must have stepped away for a minute. Understandable. In the middle of my commentary, he'll come back and say, "Hey, you forgot about me." Okay. Yeah, that's what he'll do. That's what he'll do, and that's fine. Okay. There was so many times I did talk a little bit during the meeting, which I'm not supposed to do, but I don't know, it's so hard not to, you know, interject at that time. It's very difficult sometimes to do that. But these are some things, little notes that I made during the course of the meeting. There is a comedian, Gary Owens. Has anybody ever seen Gary Owens?
Yep, I love him. He's funny.
I know he's a white guy and he was married to a black woman. They happen to be divorced now, but he was married to a black woman. And most of his comedy, his stand-up comedy is based on his experience in the black community. And it's funny. If you've never seen it, some kind of way, find him on YouTube or whatever, because the things that he says are true. You know, like, why you gotta stay in church all day long? Okay. I mean, about thinking that he took his son to, you know, how they have little league rec basketball and what, and everybody wanted his son. Gary Owens is tall. He's very tall, and apparently his son was tall. So they thought because his son was tall, he could play basketball. Made assumptions. I mean, but it's just like everyday things like that that he observes about the Black community and Black people that is true. I mean, it's funny, but it's true. It's not necessarily malicious. It's not malicious in any way. It's just things that he's observed about being in the Black community from a white person's perspective. So if you ever get an opportunity to find him on YouTube or something, watch it. It's pretty funny. The next thing that came to mind were somebody mentioned the buddy movies. I think it was Larry with Richard Pryor and Gene Wilder, and also Wesley Snipes and Woody Harrelson did a couple of buddy movies, and so those were they were funny. All of them were pretty funny. I do think that it is. I know, not I think. I know it is possible to have friendships between, you know, Black people and white people and be on an equal footing, and respect each other on an equal basis. I know that it happens. I also think, as Marla, is she here? That the younger generation, they're not as sensitive about race as we are. They talk to each other. They'll call each other the N-word. They'll call each other white girl, white boy, whatever, and they don't get offended by it. They don't care. They're very relaxed about it. It's not the issue that it was, you know, like when we were. I can't speak for the 70s because I was out of high school by then, but the issue that, say, in the 60s, that it was, you know, when I went to high school or was in school, whatever, it's much different. Also, there was a movie, and I can't think of the name of this movie, but it was when this school from Texas had 5 Black players.
Glory Road.
Glory Road?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and they played Kentucky, and they beat them. That's the movie, Greer?
Yep, that's it. One of my friends did the hair for that movie because they shot part of it down here.
Yes, yeah, yeah. That's a movie of many times that, Black athletes were thought to be inferior. And this movie was about proving that they weren't. And the coach, Bill Riley, oh, I can't think of his, he was the coach in New York, he was the coach in Miami. He was a very
Pat
successful.
Riley.
Pat Riley, okay. Pat Riley was on the Kentucky team. And he got beat. He was one of the ones that was on the team that they won. That came to mind while we were having this discussion. Another thing that came to mind while we were having the discussion that Dee Dee talked about, sports or activities that Black people were thought not to be good at. And when it really wasn't, not that they were good, these activities are expensive. And that's why we didn't participate in them, like skiing, like golf, like gymnastics. My daughter was in gymnastics. Swimming, there were no swimming pools. Ballet, figure skating. These, we didn't have the facility or we didn't have the money to participate in these activities. And once we did, we have shown that we are just as competent as anyone else and whatnot. So those are the few things that I observed and noticed and wanted to make comments about throughout the meeting. So any announcements? Guess we can stop recording now.